Now for what's tipping the scales of justice in just a few minutes, a grandmother convicted in the hot car death of her grandchild will be sentenced. I want to show you a live look at the courtroom right now. Tracey Nix left her 7-month-old granddaughter Uriel in her car for hours. She was found guilty of one count of leaving a child unattended in a vehicle for more than 15 minutes. But what the jury didn't know was that there was another grandchild that also died in Nix's care when her grandson Ezra wandered away and drowned in a pond the year before. Scripps News Tampa sat down with the children's mother before Nix's trial.
Where is your mindset at this moment?
I think overwhelmed would be probably the very best word I would have. And no matter where this goes, this is not going to be a win for me. This is a lose, lose, lose for me.
2 of Kayla's children died under her mother Tracey's care.
And they were taken by somebody that we believed was worthy of trust.
We first met with Kayla and her now husband Drew in the spring of 2023, 3 months after Uriel's death.
A little girl. How do you forget a little girl?
According to court records, on November 1st, 2022, Kayla was going to get her hair done and asked her mom to babysit. Tracey met with friends for lunch, drove home, and forgot her granddaughter in the back seat with the windows rolled up. She went inside, talked to her dog, and practiced the piano. When one of her grandsons arrived, all of a sudden it came across her head that Uriel was in the back seat all afternoon. Her husband immediately began CPR. Temperatures in Wauchula that day reached 90 degrees. Uriel died. She was 7 months old. But less than a year earlier, 3 days before Christmas 2021, 16-month-old Ezra, Uriel's brother, also died while under his grandmother Tracey's care.
911, where is your emergency?
That's a little baby. The grandmother's out giving him CP. Is he breathing? No.
Okay, it was a pond?
Yeah.
And they're not sure how long the child was in the pond?
No.
The state attorney's office did not file any charges, telling us in cases involving the accidental drowning of a toddler, Florida appellate courts have stated that a one-time lapse of judgment would not establish culpable negligence of the caretaker.
Do you want your mother to spend any time in prison?
The mother in me, as I've said before, requires justice for my kid. The mother in me requires justice for my daughter. But there's a 5-year-old that lives in me still that doesn't want bad things for my mom.
So this mother lost 2 of her children because of her own mother. We just think about, let that sink in for a second. So when the jury didn't know about the first instance, the judge did. And it's the judge who's going to impose the sentence. Is that going to change things today? I want to bring in attorney John Phillips to talk about that. John, the judge always knows more than the jury in a lot of ways. And here, factually, the judge had more. Do you think that's going to impact the court's decision?
Look, I usually don't go personal here, but I pray it does. We represent Araya Page, and Araya Page was another little baby who was left in a hot car, and the justice system in Florida failed her just like they did this child. The standard on a hot car death is this extreme negligence, this not simple negligence. In our case, at least they charged felony murder rule, which is on appeal. But this grandmother has lost 2 children and gotten, the bare minimum of a conviction. And so this judge knows that. And while he can't sentence her for the first death of the child, he can certainly give her the maximum of the second loss.
Right. And you're right, John, he can look at the other things in her life that are going to factor in here, even though, like you said, technically it's not a sentence on that. Tell me, and I appreciate, I think one of the things that's so great about you, John, can be a person too, not just a lawyer. You know, you're saying, look, like personally, this is how we feel, and appreciate that authenticity so much. With this next question, this is personal to the mother of those kids. So many of us here at Court TV, and we're trying not to pass any judgment, because I can't think of anything worse for this poor young woman than to lose both of her kids. My heart breaks for her. Many of us have been asking the question here, and it's a tough one: why leave the second child with your mom after the first instance? What do you think about that, John?
It's her mom. You know, she raised her. And you know, it's not just the mother, but the father. You know, to see, you know, a strong guy just break down tells you how horrible, how below every other loss that we can experience losing our children, particularly our young children, is for these families. And the line that I want people to hear from these victims is, how do you forget a baby when you're driving in a hot car? I've asked myself that question, you know, repeatedly. I've never left one of my kids in the car. I don't need a shoe. But people need to pay attention and not depend on car alarms and you know, reminders. You have a child in your custody, always assume they need your care.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I appreciate the reference you made there. I've heard people say, well, you said the shoe, take off one of your shoes, toss it in the back seat, so that when you go to step out of the car, you go, oh, well, let me open up the back door, and then there's the child. Gosh, this is just such a heartbreaker. John, quickly, because we're almost out of time, but what kind of a sentence do you think would be appropriate for this grandma?
Unfortunately, she's not going to get it. Again, Florida law is broken, and I want Florida legislators to pay attention to this. You have got to make these homicide cases, not based upon culpable neglect, but the criminal defense bar is ahead of us, victims' lawyers, with these cases, because they can testify that it was a mere accident. So whatever the maximum is, the maximum.
That's such great insight for us. John Phillips, you're awesome. Thank you so much for everything this morning. We'll see you next Thursday morning here on Opening Statements. My friends, that's all.